What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 47 of the Everyday Sens podcast. I am Jack Richardson, joined by Brendan Parks, as always. Here on Friday, October 13th, we're recording, previewing the home opening weekend, reacting to the game one loss in Carolina, some Daniel Alfredsson stuff to get into. So, Brendan, how are you doing today on this? It's a beautiful day here in Ottawa. I'm not sure about Edmonton.
Yeah, it's a little chilly in Edmonton. I'm already seeing the colder atmosphere that everybody keeps talking about. They say the winters are brutal out here, so we'll see. I got to get my snow tires, but doing well. I'm doing better than I was yesterday after that opening Sens game. I mean, they lost 5-3, of course, in Carolina, and that was a scheduled loss. So during the game, I did see some frustration, obviously, on Twitter, and then I was definitely frustrated after a bad second period. We're going to talk about it. But we flipped the page, and now we're on to two huge games this weekend. They've got Philly tomorrow. They've got Tampa on Sunday, back-to-back. I will say I hate how the schedule worked out to start the year. I know Kevin Lee on Twitter, I just saw him put out, like, it sucks to obviously you have that first game, and it's a really hard game that they lost, and then you go 2 days with no hockey. The worst is when you have to kind of, like, embrace this terrible loss over 2 days instead of just going right back in. So hopefully tomorrow they can rebound, beat Philly at home. I know you're going to be there, and I think most of like the Sens Twitter people are going to be there. I obviously will not be, but I'm hoping it seems like it's going to be a great atmosphere. The pregame stuff starts 15 minutes before the game, I guess. So it's going to be interesting if they do like a thing for Anlauer. Maybe they're going to do an introductory thing. They're going to obviously announce all the players, the roster. Josh Norris does not look like he's going to play, unfortunately. But you know what? I wish they would just tell us that, and then he would come out and surprise us and play tomorrow, because that would be the best hype you could possibly get. Don't think that's going to happen, but either way, it's going to be Forsberg starting. Like, it's going to be your guy, right? So we're going to see what happens. They have a great matchup, though. Like, although Carolina was a terrible first game to have, Philly's probably the best second game you could ask for. I mean, they have a great chance here to kind of win everybody back. Now, if they lose this game, like, all hell is going to break loose, and it's going to be crazy because they're going to be 0-2, and Philly's not a good team, but they did win their home openers, so we'll see what happens, but it should be a good game, and yeah, I'm doing pretty well today.
Yeah, there we go. I had two things to click there, but we're breaking down the opening night loss. Let's get into that Carolina game first, and then we will get into Philly and kind of just the whole weekend in general, because they're hosting Tampa Bay the next night as well. So I don't even know where to start with that game. Like, we can maybe go period by period, but I mean, overall, the first period was fantastic. They looked great, and then second period, well in Carolina's favor. And then to me, the third felt like the Sens just gave it away. They gave it to the Hurricanes. They clawed back, got two quick goals, stunned the crowd. And then Tim Stützle giveth and Tim Stützle taketh. He obviously has that great goal to tie it in the third early. You think maybe this is going to be a different game. They might squeeze a point out here. I think it was with 13, 14 minutes left in the third. And then Timmy with the giveaway, Korpisalo bad goal. You're down 4-3, becomes 5-3, and game's over. So I don't even know like what to ask, because personally, I'll just give my thoughts on the entire game. I thought our concerns going in were kind of flipped upside down. I think the depth pieces like Joseph, Chartier, Greg looked great. They weren't the problem. The top guys were a bit of an issue, I guess 2 nights ago on Wednesday. So to me, I needed to see more from Brady Tkachuk. I needed to see more from Giroux a little bit. Like, I think Batherson had a lot of shots on goal and stuff like that, but in games like that, you kind of need your top guys to get going. And I know they're up against the best, team in the league pretty much in their home rink. They're going to get matched up against the top defensive pairing all night, but it was just a bit disappointing, I think. And then it was surprising, I should say, that Chartier and Joseph were the guys, and Parker Kelly. I forgot to mention Parker Kelly. Goal and assist for Kelly and Joseph each. No one had that on their bingo card going in. So what was your takeaway? And like, maybe you can touch on the defense a little bit. I know Shabbat and Chikrin struggled a lot. So what were your thoughts just on the performance on Wednesday?
Yeah, it was a great first period. So I might actually have this posted, but I did a whole film study, so that's going to be on YouTube. And I broke down like everything that went wrong for the Sens, because we saw a lot of the same things. Like, I don't care about what happened individually, like fluke goals and stuff, they happen. It's more about the recurring trends that we see. And I thought we saw a lot of the same concerns that we saw in the past few years with Ottawa. And that was primarily in the defensive zone and just kind of a lack of awareness from their top players, especially. You talked about it, like Chikrin and Shabbat, they were by far the biggest disappointment for me in that game. This is crazy. They played 14-31 together at 5v5. The shot attempts were 25-7 for Carolina with them on the ice, and they started the majority of their shifts in the neutral zone. Like, it's not like they were put in defensive situations. They got outshot 11-2 Like 11-2 Ottawa, and that was with Shabbat and Chikrin. They played the most with Batherson, Giroux, Joseph. Like, it's crazy. They were on for 2 goals against together. Chikrin was on for 3 goals against. And like, that just can't happen with your top guys. I mean, this was the most anticipated defense pairing that we've seen in probably our fandom. Like, it's just, they were so good in the preseason too, I thought. And then you come out and Shabbat really struggled again. And I hate to see that because we were so, like, we talked about it in the game preview right before the game. Shabbat was kind of a key. We needed him to be dynamic, make less mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes, and I broke that down in the film study. Like, I wasn't even trying to highlight him or Chikrin specifically, but I just found every clip I had was with them on the ice. It was just like, I broke one down on Twitter. I know you saw yesterday, and some people were talking about it. He just, like, he kept stepping up and then not taking the body, but missing the puck and taking these long swings. And, like, it's just so easy to walk around him. And I get that he's more of an offensive guy, but when you're walking around, like Jordan Martinook is easily walking around Thomas Chabot, that's a problem. That shouldn't be happening. And it happened more than once on Wednesday, and it really cost the Sens. And obviously that goal that was really the backbreaker was the first one, 20 seconds into the third period. It was only 2-1 Carolina. Ottawa was right there, and Chabot makes just a terrible, terrible turnover. I know people blamed him, including myself originally. Went back and watched it. Chabot just, like, basically passed the puck right into the opposing player, who was Martinook again, gave the puck away, and then Carolina scores because he doesn't take the body on Jordan Staal in front of the net. It's frustrating to watch those same mistakes happen with Chabot especially, but Chikrin suffered some of the same errors too. Some positives that we'll get into, like you talked about. There was one player, I'm going to let you guess. So there was one player at 5v5 who Ottawa outshot the opponent. Only one. Every single player was outshot, like with them on the ice. Ottawa was outshot at 5v5 except for one. Who do you think that one was?
Was it Joseph?
No. It was Rourke Chartier.
Yeah, there you go.
Rourke Chartier, the player who everybody was commenting before the game was the weak link. He's going to be the reason they lose, yada, yada, yada. He played, like, ridiculously well. I thought he was physical, too. He was really, like, he blew somebody up along the boards on that one play. I know a lot of people remember. That was awesome. He was physical. He was really good defensively, like we saw last year. And he didn't get an assist on that first Joseph goal, but he probably should have because he started that with a nice rush. Parker Kelly, too, you mentioned him. Phenomenal game. Another player who nobody wanted in the lineup, and yet he comes out and he scores the 2 points, but he had some really nice clips on the penalty kill, too. Killed a lot of time, was a key contributor there. Same with Matthew Joseph. We can talk about Joseph again. I know we have a lot already, but, like, I don't know how you trade this guy. I know that this is the strong performance is upping his value. That's good. Like, teams are if he plays like this for 5-10 games, teams are very quickly going to start to turn to, like, okay, maybe we should give an asset for this guy instead of requesting a first round pick, because that's looking a little more egregious now, like, for teams demanding a first round pick for Joseph at under $3 million. I mean, come on. But at the same time, if you're Ottawa, like, the penalty kill was a big thing. They took 6 penalties. I said before the game they needed to be disciplined. They weren't. Their penalties were all actual penalties, and they were bad. Like, that Mark Kastelic interference was really bad. Hamonic had to delay a game. Tim took 2 kind of obvious and bad ones. He wasn't happy about them, but they were penalties. Carolina actually scored on the first one Tim took. I thought, unfortunately, even though he had a beautiful goal, he had a pretty rough night. He had some bad turnovers. It happens, though, right? It's a tough matchup. But overall, I think, like, back to Joseph, I mean, how do you trade him when he's playing this well? He was their best player, I think, in that first game. Obviously, the penalty kill was huge, and he was a key factor. He actually was the one that set up Parker Kelly for a shorthanded goal, and he scored more goals at 5v5 than he did in all of last season already, too. In 56 games last year, whatever it was, he already scored 1 this year. So Joseph, I mean, you got to get Pinto on the ice, but at the same time, like, is it worth trading Matthew Joseph when he's playing this well? Is it a lateral move to kind of get rid of him and bring Pinto in? Again, I don't think Joseph can sustain this level of play all year, but, like, if he's playing even at 80% of what we saw in that first game, it's going to be tough to lose him because the Sens don't have someone who's at that level, I don't think, aside from him. So those were kind of my initial takeaways. Korpisalo, by the way, again, after watching the goals, I blame him for the 4th one on Brady Shea. That was I don't know what he was doing. Like, he just missed, and it sucks because that was the game winner. He just, like, whiffed with the glove. It was a shot from almost the blue line that he easily should have had. Maybe he just kind of had a bit of a screen or something. I'm not sure, but that one was on him. The other goals were not on him. I thought he played a very good game. Again, Chabot put him in a rough spot right off the hop by taking a bad penalty that led to a penalty shot. Korpisalo made the save on that. I credit him for a good game. And yeah, otherwise it was just really a good first period, and Ottawa couldn't match the pace of the second and third, and the game quickly slipped away. It looked like they crumbled, which is what we saw last year. So yeah, hopefully they can turn it around and kind of show a dominant performance for 60 minutes at home in Philly, because they weren't able to play for 60 minutes last year, and we saw that again in game 1.
Yeah, I'm not pressing the panic button by any means. Like, I don't think that's what we're doing, and I don't think that's what anyone else is doing, but with all the expectation, with all the hype, and the players talking about it, like it's easy to say, but you got to go out and do it. And I think that's why, this season's going to be big about the start, especially is going to be a big focus on DJ. It's going to be a big focus on Pierre, just in how they manage and adapt and adjust and all of that. Like that'll be scrutinized regardless. But one thing that I don't think has been scrutinized enough, and rightfully so, maybe in some ways, but now it's got to start, is holding top players accountable. And that's why I mentioned right off the top, I don't think Brady had a great game. I like that you mentioned Stützle as well, because now I'm racking my brain and like that goal kind of maybe clouds a little bit the game that he had. Like he has that giveaway with Shabbat. Like I know it's him and Shabbat, but the one that Korpisalo let in, like the game winner, that can't happen. That just can't. And it started because Tim made a nice play bringing the puck up, and then got, I don't want to say not lazy, but he thought he was past. He got robbed. He thought he was past the defender. I think it was Jesper Fast, maybe. I'm not sure who it was, but anyway, he thought he was past him, and he wasn't. He got careless inside his own blue line. That's literally like a coach. It'll make a coach have gray hair. Like you can't be doing that. It's your best player doing it too. It's tough. And just the time. And I talked about before the game when we previewed it on our live stream, I talked about, making the timely save or getting a timely goal. Well, timely mistakes can't happen either. You got to have a good awareness of the clock and be like, you know what? It's a 3-3 game. Building's probably going crazy a little bit here. They're on their heels. We got to just take control of the puck. And that's just something that I know that, knowing Tim Stützle, we've watched him for years now. I know he'll come out and have a strong game tomorrow. He's not going to make that mistake again anytime soon anyway. Like he'll know now. The thing is, like, when it's other guys too, Shabbat didn't have a great game. Jacob Chikrin was a game low -3 on the night. He's a -3, the only player on the Sens like that. Like that's a problem too, right? I don't think Chikrin, I think, Shabbat maybe had the more glaring mistakes, but I don't think Chikrin was good at all. And that's just a fact. So having the top guys not perform when the depth shows up and produces for you is really crippling. And it's almost backwards, because if they had lost that game, I'm not going to say it's backwards. I'm going to spin this a little bit. I think it might be a blessing in disguise. And let me put it like this, and I'll tell you why. I put out a question. This was when it was 3-1, so it was before the Sens even came back, but message is still the same. If Norris and Pinto had played, do you think that it's a different outcome on Wednesday night? And personally, I don't, because what I just said, the depth showed up. It was the top guys. It was the top players who you were expecting to have a constant from that just didn't have good games. So to me, I think it's a blessing. And the reason I say it's a blessing in disguise is because the team can't use that as an excuse. Rook Chartier was the best forward analytically on Wednesday night. Parker Kelly had a goal and assist. Matthew Joseph had a goal and an assist. Like you can't be saying, oh, if we had Norris and Pinto, we would have won that game or been in a better shape. Like I think if the top line was struggling in the, Batherson, Tarasenko, like all the Kubalik, like if they're not producing, then, or they're not producing and they're also not providing, strong defensive play as a 5-man unit, they're going to suffer. So I think that's why maybe it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, we'll say. But obviously I'm not crazy. I'd rather have Norris and Pinto in the lineup, but I don't know, man. Like to me, that's kind of where I felt like it was you could just see, like, if they lost that game, I'm not blaming the questions, but the narrative from DJ after certainly would have been, we weren't fully equipped if like Tim got a hat trick and they lost. That's kind of my point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it would have changed the outcome. Maybe you could argue like having Norris and Pinto gets them a power play goal. They went 0 for 4 on the power play. Maybe they score a timely one. I thought they really struggled to set up and get chances. They actually did get, I think they had 5 high danger chances on the power play. I really like their zone entries after rewatching the game. But they struggled to get set up. Their chances were all off of broken plays. Maybe if they have Norris, they get him a one-timer, he scores, and it's 2-0 Ottawa earlier in the game, right? You never know, but at the same time, like you said, Chartier and Ridley Gregg too, they were 2 of the 4 players I highlighted in the film study, in the sense that I thought they both played really well. Like they looked comfortable. They did really good things. They didn't really make any key mistakes, unlike a lot of the Sens players did, especially their top guys. So yeah, having Norris and Pinto, I'm sure it would have helped. Maybe they get a little more possession too than with Chartier and Gregg. But again, I don't think that it's fair to use that as an excuse. And that was the one thing that I hated about Norris and Pinto being out. And of course, I'm with everybody in saying that was a tough game to play. Like it was a hard opener. It was a scheduled loss. That's why I only gave them a 30% chance of winning in the preview. Like everybody was low on me for that. But it was a tough game. I'm with you. It's just I hate using excuses, and I hate when excuses are like available, because right from the beginning you knew if they lost that game, everybody could just look to Norris and Pinto being out and say, well, it doesn't really matter. They didn't have these guys. Like, of course they didn't play well when they're missing these guys. And if Chartier and Greg would have been awful in that game, I would have agreed. But they actually were two of Ottawa's best players, so I don't think it's fair to say that. Like, obviously it's going to hurt them missing those players, but like when Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk are having bad games, like how can we blame that on guys who aren't even on their line most of the time? Like when they're actually playing, it's just not. It doesn't make sense. You have to look at who's struggling and why the Sens are losing the game, not just a bland statement of they were missing these players and so they lost. Like Ottawa had control of the game after the first period. They were in a great spot entering the second, and then a penalty, an undisciplined penalty from Tim, and they give up a shorthanded goal, and it's like the game just slipped away from them, and the momentum changed. And Carolina will do that to you. I agree, but I'm with you. I don't think it's fair to blame it on Norris or Pinto missing, because like we said, they really like they don't even play with the guys who struggled, and the guys who replaced them played very well. In Ottawa's depth, I will say seeing Ottawa's depth play well was awesome, because that was a huge like lacking point last year. Obviously, was they had no contributions from their depth at all. It was all the top line doing everything. So even Giroux kind of struggled. He had some bad turnovers and some misplays too, which is uncharacteristic. But seeing them struggle sucks. But at the same time, it was nice to take away that we actually got to see Parker Kelly get on the score sheet. I don't even know how many points he had last year. Did he have like 6 points in 56 games or something?
Yeah,
something along, like a goal. Like it was something crazy like that. He's almost surpassed his total. Joseph already scored more 5v5 goals than he had. Those are positive notes, and we can take those. It's just you can't have these top guys struggling against a bad Flyers team now. That's my key for tomorrow, is like the top guys can have a day off. They had a tough matchup against Sebastian Aho and some of the tough Carolina players. Good defense, obviously. But if they come out and they struggle again, now the concern starts to set in. It's like, hey, what's wrong? Do we have to change the lines? Like, we'll see. I'm not going to panic yet, of course. But I love that question that you posted too. I think you got a lot of responses. What were the responses? Did you get like a lot of people saying no, or were a lot of people kind of on board with maybe losing Norris and Pinto was kind of a factor that we can easily just excuse?
You know what? I'm going to go check right now. At the time, I think it was mainly like, yes, I would say. I'm just kind of scrolling right here to find them. So no, like it's kind of mixed, like people are mentioning the first line not looking great. So maybe that would have helped. Someone said we'll never know. Yeah, like to me, it just felt like they were outclassed, and I'm not surprised by that. Carolina's top of the league, but again, it's kind of the standard you want to hit eventually as a team. So it's a little bit disappointing. I like what you mentioned about depth. Again, I'm going to add something to that too. Like when you're on the road and your top line is going to be faced against. So I think they had them. Carolina was matching them against Shea and Pesci the whole night. Like I know that was a thing. Pesci and Tkachuk were going at it a lot. So when that happens, you need your depth to not only stop goals, but produce goals, because presumably your top line is going to have a harder time on the road because you can't get them away from that matchup. That's expected. Now, when your top pairing as well is also bleeding goals against, that's like a double negative, it feels like, right? Because you're expecting Shabbat and Chychrun to go out and produce for you. So when they're not, and again, look, it's one game and the sample size is very, very small, but it's the only size we have. So we're going to go by it. If they go out and just light the world on fire this weekend, win both games by a lot, look great in the process, goalies are great, whatever, that'll be the narrative. Like that's just how it's going to work. And then in a month, when we have more substance, like by the time they hit Sweden, we can form, opinions on people's seasons. I see a lot of stuff, by the way, about Tarasenko and how it was a bad signing, bad fit because Joseph looks great right now. And I'm not doubting that. I'm really not. Like I understand that because Joseph looks so good and he's the guy you want to trade, but Tarasenko hasn't really done much, had a bit of an off night. Like I said, I'm going to give him 10 games. You got to give a guy 10 games in the lineup regular season to be able to analyze where he's at. In my opinion, I think that's the way it should work. So I don't know what else we can touch on in that game specifically. Like
I don't mind hitting a little more on Tarasenko, just because
let's
I think we should talk about, because they changed the lines today in practice too. So
they did.
Tarasenko, yeah, there's a lot about people. Like people are very angry, and I mean, there's sort of right for the sense that Pinto is obviously out largely because Tarasenko is making $5 million. I still like the signing. I will say that. I still think that like they needed to add another forward. Now they could have gone for like a Thomas Tatar or something, maybe a bit less, and then they could have signed Pinto. It's hindsight a little bit. It wasn't great planning by Pierre Dorion. I agree with the criticism there. But at the same time, like Tarasenko, I think still can be an impactful player. The problem with this game one, and again, I rewatched and I watched Tarasenko specifically because everybody was hating on him. And yeah, he didn't play well. I thought he floated a lot. He was invisible. He kind of followed the thing that St. Louis fans were saying, that he's a streaky goal scorer, right? Like he was just totally invisible, cheating up the ice when he didn't have the puck, right? You could kind of see him waiting, and then when Ottawa gets the puck, he takes all of a sudden he's skating really hard, but like when they don't have the puck, he's kind of floating at the blue line and waiting, and typical goal scorer type behavior. But what my biggest takeaway was that he only had one shot attempt in that game and no shots on goal, and he's a shooter. He makes a living off of shooting the puck, and they didn't get him in situations where he can shoot. Now, he was playing with Chartier, who had a good game, yes, not overly offensive, of course, and Dominic Kubalik, who's also a shooter. And he's on the second power play unit. Obviously, they're running that same first unit they saw last year a lot of the time and the year before, and they've got Giroux up there now with kind of Batherson, Tkachuk, Stützle, Chabot. I don't mind that, but I will say that first unit without Norris doesn't really have a prime shooter. Like, Stützle obviously had a couple of nice shots in the preseason, but he's not really the guy you want shooting the puck on the power play. Like, you want...
I should mention, no Alex DeBrincat, who got a power play goal last night for his first as a veteran.
Like he was the designated shooter though last year, right? Like he was the shooter, Norris is the shooter. Without Norris, that first unit's kind of just passing the puck around. Nobody wants to shoot. So it's like, I mean, like if you watch them, I really thought they struggled to move the puck because they didn't know who was going to shoot. Like, are you trying to get it to Batherson on his, like he's not taking a one-timer, but is he trying to shoot, or is he just going to try the crossing to Tim? Nobody's got the one-timer set up except for Chabot at the point. And Chabot, for God's sake, cannot hit the net for the life of him. He's either hitting the player in front of him or he's missing by 3 feet. Hard shot, but no accuracy at all to that thing. He's just blasting it. Like, it's crazy. Same thing with Chychrun. I really want to see Chychrun get more shots. And this is why I kind of wanted them to play the right side as well, as he's just he's got a bomb of a shot. Like, he should be scoring 20 goals on this team with the firepower they have, but he's not really being put in shooting situations. He's on the second power play unit. They didn't get a lot of time in the first game. The first unit was kind of thrown out there for a lot of it. Tim and Chabot even stayed out on a couple of the power plays with the second unit. I don't know what that was about. They were messing around with it, but Tarasenko was who we're talking about. He didn't get like any looks in the power play at all. I mean, they couldn't set up, but like, I don't know. They just had no real answer to Carolina playing an aggressive penalty kill. They need to get Tarasenko into the shooting opportunities, because that's where you're going to see the $5 million come back and pay dividends, is when you're getting him the puck in space to shoot, because that's how he scores goals. And frankly, even if he's not a super, like, he's not a play driver, don't get me wrong, he's not going to be this play driver. Is he even worth $5 million? Maybe not. But like, if he scores 25, 30 goals, nobody's going to be complaining about a $5 million contract, because that would be huge. Like, regardless of whether it's just him shooting every now and again, like, goals are goals and goals speak. That's really what it comes down to, and those equate to money. So you need to get him the looks. Today in practice, they've got Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux, Joseph, Greg, and Tarasenko on the second line, so he is now moving up. Batherson is going down with Kubalik and Chartier. Norris is not expected to play in the home opener. Maybe Sunday, like, he shouldn't be long, because they should have put him on LTIR if he's going to miss more than 3 or 4 games, in my opinion. But Batherson now with Kubalik and Chartier. I love the combos, because you needed Tarasenko and Kubalik to play with a playmaker. Chartier's not a playmaker. I thought he had a great game, but he's not a playmaker. Now you've got Batherson with Kubalik, and you've got Tarasenko with Joseph and Greg. Those two guys can get him the puck, and same with Batherson, right? He can get Kubalik the puck. So I think you're going to see a little bit, like, those are better kind of combos. They make more sense. And then McEwen also should be back tomorrow, but it's a game time decision. We'll see. Forsberg starts. Everything else is the same. We can kind of get into that game as well now, because we've broken down Carolina. Again, just on the Carolina game, go check out the film study if you want to see more, because I broke down everything. And I'm probably going to post it before, because it's ready to go right now. So go check that out, but we're going to move on here.
Was just gonna plug that. Yeah, that'll be on our YouTube as well. And you're gonna have like all the editing and stuff going, right? You got yourself in the corner. Just
so many tricks, plays. Man. I've got myself in the corner with the drawing too.
Yeah. Oh wow. He's got the whiteboard out basically. So support for Everyday Sens podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SENS20 at manscaped.com. The performance package 4.0 arrived for me, and honestly, guys, it's a game changer. I didn't really think I needed half the stuff in there, but once you start using it, you realize how important the hygiene is in that down their area. I think men's hygiene is kind of overlooked a lot of the time, and in this day and age, it's kind of on its way back up, or even just back in general. So the performance package includes the lawnmower 4.0, which is the main trimmer. They've got a nose and hair trimmer as well, including a bunch of deodorant products for that down there area. And it's honestly like they include a wash kit, a t-shirt, a pair of underwear. It's the full works in that performance package. Even if you don't think you need all of that stuff, I recommend just trying out the Lawnmower 4.0, excuse me. One of the products alone is worth the time and the price, especially with Everyday Sens promotion with the Sens 20 code. So again, that's get 20% off and free shipping with the code SENS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code SENS20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now let's get back to the Everyday Sens podcast. I know that you pointed out on Twitter too, like a play that Shabbat made, and we'll like I like that. So if that's kind of a teaser for what the film study is going to be, then obviously check that out. We will pump that on Twitter and on Instagram as well. All right, let's actually, before we get into this weekend, let's talk about something that we have known for a while, pretty much since the Eugene Melnyk passed away. So a year and a half now, let's say, that Daniel Alfredsson had a future with the Ottawa Senators in the organization, and that day is today. And it was kind of unofficial. It felt like he was just out on the ice with them coaching, with a helmet on, I should say, with the 2D logo and his number on it as well, which is pretty funny. So Daniel Alfredsson is back in a coaching and player development role per Steve Staios, the president of hockey operations for the Ottawa Senators. So this is a big one, man. They haven't really specified what the role is. And I've got some quotes here that I'm going to read. He did a little bit of a media presser. I'm sure that the video will be up soon, but from transcribed from 1200 right now, they got a couple. So Alfie said he had a bit of a taste of it last year, and now he's back in the fire. He's very excited, can be a sounding board and share my experiences on and off the ice. I knew I had to be patient with the whole sale process, how long that took. The team is very skilled offensively. When I started, we were good defensively and had to work out on the offense. And finally, I'm going to learn from the coaching staff and see where I fit in. So to me, I think this is more of a significant deal than him just joining Sean Donovan and Jesse Winchester as player development. I think player development on the actual Ottawa Senators, because I know that those guys focus more on their rookies and their prospects and stuff. So to me, I think that's a big deal. Like I really do think that we could see a scenario here where Alfie's like on the bench in games, maybe like if it's in coaching and player development, that might be a bit crazy, but I'd expect him to be at most of the games, press conference or press box, whatever it is. Like, it's exciting, man. I think when you can, I know you mentioned the home opener from last year as well, when he came out and dropped the puck, which was a huge deal, but I'd expect that there will be some kind of similar thing tomorrow, and I'm excited to see that. That'll be great. But to me, like, I don't know, this is just perfect, I think, because I know that I said that he'll be on the bench and whatever, but that probably won't happen. It's more just having him involved and having him talking with Brady Tkachuk and with Tim Stützle. Like, even though they didn't win a cup, the Alfie's Sens in his prime were one of the best in the league. Like, they were probably the team that got robbed the most from the lockout. Like, this is a guy who was at the top of the NHL for his prime of his career. So it's perfect that he can come in and just kind of, be a free resource essentially, right? I know they're paying him, but you can be a free Hall of Famer. Just you walk into the rink and have your breakfast and watch TV and, oh, a Hall of Famer sitting right beside me. Hey, what was this game like when you went to Carolina? Like, stuff like that's huge, I think. So what did you think about this announcement? To me, this morning, though, it just felt out of the blue. Like, I don't know if it was kind of, a Friday thing that was planned, or like he's been on the ice maybe a couple times already. Like, what did you think about everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting. Obviously, Alfie should have been back a long time ago. And this is how Michael Andlauer is going to get the fans on his side immediately, is by bringing arguably the best player of Sens history. I don't even think it's arguable, but like you could argue Erik Karlsson, right? So Alfie, though, I think you were hitting the nail on the head right there with just the fact that he's around the players, right? Like, this is still a young core, although they're entering their prime and they're more mature. We talked about that before. They're still young, and Brady Tkachuk is still a very young captain at I think 24 years old now, 23 years old. So I think, yeah, you said it, is just being around a guy like Alfie. He's got a presence, right? Like, everybody on the Sens knows who Daniel Alfredsson is, and they know the impact that he had on Ottawa and the organization. And like, imagine yourself being in a situation where you're going to the rink and you're being coached by this guy, yes, but like, you can just bounce things off him, right? You can just ask him any questions about your game, about the Sens, about the organization, the history, about hockey. life tips. Like you know how Alfie is. He went out to a lunch with Brady Tkachuk a couple of years ago, and Brady came back with a ton of info, and they had a lot of he had a lot of knowledge from Alfie that he had kind of picked his brain and learned a lot about his role as a captain. Leadership is another thing that Alfie obviously brings to the table. So it's very exciting. It's awesome for the fans as well, because there was a large disconnect under Melnyk with the fan base and the team, obviously, and this started with Daniel Alfredsson in my mind. I mean, the fact that Alfie left with hard feelings, I guess you could say, with the organization was just wrong in every way possible and imaginable. That should have never happened, but it did, and now he's coming back. He's happy under new ownership. Andlauer's one of his first moves is to bring Daniel Alfredsson back. Steve Stais, obviously, too, is the one who said he's going to be very involved. So I'm excited to see if maybe Alfie's doing some press conferences and has his name back out there, because we haven't really heard him talk to the media a whole lot in the last few years since he left the Sens. So I know people expected him to be in more of a managerial role potentially, but I like him on the ice personally. I like him being around the players, not just up in the box. And here you go. We've got it pulled up. We've got pictures of Alfie with Brady Tkachuk, and that's just awesome to see right there. Alfie's got the helmet on. He's the only coach wearing the helmet, right? He's the old school type of guy. Wow, like that's chills, honestly. That's chills right there. If you're on audio only, like, you're missing out, because Alfie's, like, these are great pictures. But like I said, I just think that obviously this is awesome for the players and the fans, and I think it kind of, along with Andlauer coming in, it builds the bridge back that was previously burned with the fan base and the organization. So yeah, awesome move, and I'm excited to see kind of what his role is, because he doesn't even have an official title yet. He's kind of just skating on the ice and yeah, sharing his info and getting these guys going. So if they lose tomorrow after having Daniel Alfredsson on the ice coaching them today, I don't know what to tell you. Something's wrong.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get rid of that ad. I don't know how this website works anymore, but yeah, this is awesome, man. It's kind of, you mentioned, as soon as, I'm glad you mentioned the dinner that they had. I guess it was a year ago, like when they were talking about things, being a captain, whatever it is. I'm glad that you brought that up as soon as I got these pictures, because I saw them on Twitter. I was like, we got to throw that up. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It doesn't even matter what they're talking about. They could be talking about absolutely nothing, but like, it's just the fact that, like, it's this bridge of captains, right? And it feels different, and maybe I'm off base here, but it feels a bit more special to me than seeing Alfie and Karlsson kind of interact like that, because they were teammates, and like he kind of, Alfie and Karlsson was kind of like a, there's not really anything comparable on the Sens right now, but Karlsson was a rookie and Alfie was one of his idols, whatever. So he comes in and like gets to learn from him. Then he becomes the second captain after him. Like, it was a little bit different, but this is just generational, right? This is, you and I were what, 7-8 years old when Alfie was in his prime, and like we were watching, and I don't really remember much of it, to be honest. I'll never forget when he left. Actually, I went and kind of looked at his cap friendly actually, just to see what he signed for in Detroit, and it was like for $3.5 million for 1 year. Like that, I remember that whole thing. I think that's the first hard memory I have of Alfredsson. I met him when I was a kid once too. I was like 6 years old, maybe. He signed my jersey. Like it was the coolest thing ever. So my point is, there's kids now in Ottawa who feel that way about Brady Tkachuk. So to me, I think that's what's cool. You're bridging this generational gap of the greatest Senator of all time and a guy who, by all accounts, loves being here, can see himself doing that as well. That's special. And I think Brady not going out of his way, but going to dinner with Alfredsson last year at some point, like, proves that he wants to be that guy. He wants to have number 7 up there in the rafters one day. That's really special. It really is. So I love seeing that as well. It does give me chills too. There really isn't much more to hit on though, but you're right. Like they got to come out hard tomorrow, and I know they will. I fully expect them to win tomorrow. Sunday's another thing, but let's preview those. And before we wrap up here, we'll keep it. We probably won't go to an hour today. I'm going to preface maybe. I don't think we will, but let's break down what that's the opening night loss. Nice, Jack. We're going home opening weekend is what we're going to talk about here on the YouTube. So it's not just the home opener I want to focus on. Let's focus on both, because we're going to probably record on Monday after both games happen. So let's preview both of them. Let's get into the Philadelphia Flyers and the Tampa Bay Lightning without Andrei Vasilevsky. What are you expecting to see here? First back-to-back of the season. You get both goalies rolling in. A rare scenario, though, where they're both on home ice. So I'll go after, because I'm going to be at the games. It might be a bit of a different thing, so you'll get to watch all the details and stuff like that. But how are you feeling going into this weekend?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the lines for both of these teams, and frankly, I feel a lot more excited because they honestly both are lacking overall. I think Novasilevsky is a huge point. Now, they both did win their opening games, the Flyers and the Lightning. I don't really care about that because this is completely different. The Sens had a rough matchup in Carolina, but you know what? People made a good point in the fact that losing that game against Carolina, it almost like it could be a blessing in disguise, like you mentioned earlier, in the sense too that maybe that puts some urgency and lights a fire under them, and also shows that they need to get Pinto back in the lineup and Norris back in the lineup ASAP. They can't keep waiting. But I think that they're going to come out after that loss and they're going to be angry, right? Like, I know Brady had a rough game and Tim had a rough game, but these guys are competitors and they're going to be frustrated. And they didn't come out and talk to the media after the game, but you know how the vibe was in that room. Like, knowing this team and the leadership group, they were angry and they were pissed off, and that always comes back and shows on the ice, especially at home. This team has always played different at home with this core of players. I don't know what it is, but they absolutely love home ice in front of the crowd, especially because it's going to be like a sold out building tomorrow. It's going to be super exciting. So I'm expecting a dominant performance against Philly, first of all. I don't even want this to be a close game. I'm hoping that this is going to be a blowout against the Flyers. I think they should be taking it to them for the full 60 minutes. A period off would be frustrating to see because the message really should be like the biggest message after that first game. For one, they need to be more aware defensively, but I think the overall message should be to play the full 60 minutes. Like, they just took the second period completely off against Carolina, and that was the reason that they lost at the end of the day. That, like, they let the game get away from them when they had control of it. Like, they had them by the necks and they just completely let them get away. I think against a team like Philly especially, it's going to come down to playing the full 60 minutes. I'm assuming they're going to start Carter Hart, so they have a decent goalie playing. I'm actually going to throw the lines up. Like, why not? Let's just do a full preview here because I feel kind of different about them after actually seeing the lines. So I'll throw the Flyers lines up for people on the YouTube, and I'll just read them out for you. So we've got Joel Farabee, Sean Couturier, and Bobby Brink, Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, Cam Atkinson. This is the Flyers forwards. Scott Lawton, Noah Cates, Travis Konechny, Nick Delorier, Ryan Paling, and Garnet Hathaway on forward. Like, that's just not a group that screams talent. Like, the Sens outclass that for sure, right? I mean, on paper, they absolutely have a better lineup. And then obviously, like, the Flyers defense, you've got Cam York and Travis Sanheim, Mark Stahl. This guy's like 45 years old now. Sean Walker, and then Igor Zamula, and Nick Seeler. Like, the Sens should have a field day against this Flyers defense. They match up very well on paper because the Flyers really lack star power, and they should be a bottom 10 team in the NHL. I know, like, things can happen and it's just one game, but at the end of the day, Ottawa's on home ice. They've got the whole presentation. Now they've got Alfie back in the organization. There's a lot of hype surrounding the Sens right now, and there's really no reason for them to come out flat tomorrow. And really, like, there's no excuse if they do. I mean, obviously, they still don't have Norris. They still don't have Pinto, but they're still, like, I give them the edge on Philadelphia and all three forward, defense, and goaltenders, and plus home ice. I mean, there's no reason for them to lose this game. So if you want to kind of hit on some of your thoughts just on that first one, and then I'll kind of maybe talk about Tampa and how that'll be a tougher matchup considering it's the second half of a back-to-back. But I think that's even more reason that they should be coming out flying tomorrow is you have a tough situation in the back-to-back. Like, if you lose against Philly and you're 0-2 going into a back-to-back against Tampa the second half, you cannot be 0-3 after this weekend. That's what I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, like, the pressure is going to mount pretty quickly for this team if they stumble their way. And, like, I think I want to say TSN 1200 put out the poll this morning, and actually shout out 1200. I'm not sure who's doing the polls, but I think it might be Matthew Hammer. But he has been putting out some good polls, and this was a good one too. It was what's the minimum amount of points you want from this weekend, and it was either 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I think the majority of the answers were 3 and 4. And then like that's what it should be. We should be expecting this team to be winning both games. Like, you got to demand results at some point, and that's now. We talked about it all summer. We're going to hold them to a higher standard now, and that starts this weekend. I'm going to be disappointed. Carolina was a decent, like, you can get by with that one a little bit, right? It's the best team in the league. Their home opener, it's buzzing. But excuses are gone for me now. Anyway, the next 9 games are extremely winnable. You have a 5-game homestand coming up right now. You have to start it off strong. And they've traditionally, under DJ Smith, been a very strong home team considering their roster. It's been on the road that's a problem, and we can get into that in their next road game. Maybe I don't want to put the damper on when we've got 5 home games coming here, but yeah, to me, like, the forward core for Philly can actually do some damage. I think a healthy Sean Couturier is a big deal. Konechny, obviously, and Lawton are pretty good depth pieces as well on a third line. But that being said, the blue line, they should eat them apart. You get the matchup you want. I think even that top pairing for Philly's not going to scare me. The thing is with Philly, though, you got to remember they're going to block everything because they've got John Tortorella. John Tortorella makes sure that goalies don't have good save percentage because they don't get any shots. I don't actually know if there's a number behind that, but Philly blocks a lot of shots, and I would imagine their defense are going to be eating them. So yeah, man, like this is a completely winnable game. I'm not gonna get hung up on the score. Like if they win 3-2, it'll be fine. A win's a win to me. They just got to find a way to win. And if you're right, if they don't find a way to put a full 60 minutes together, then they got to figure out a way out of it. And like if they're down 2 after the first period, I'm expecting them to claw back. Like that's kind of where I'm at. It's not you know what, things weren't going their way this time. They've got like that was all of November last year. It was we can't get a bounce, whatever it was, and I was part of that too because it was true. But I'm not buying that this year. They got to find a way to win hockey games. And the Carolina one, the biggest red flag to me is that they had it. They had a tie game in the middle of the third period and let it slip. That's not a playoff hockey team, in my opinion. So we'll see how they do going forward and how they adjust.
Yeah, and you're spot on. It's just the excuses are gone. Like last year, they used pretty much all of the excuses in the book, and that was injuries, that was we can't get a bounce, that was goaltending. Those are gone. I mean, the team, even though they don't have their full roster right now, nobody really like. I mean, I don't want to say nobody. Some teams do, but a lot of teams are missing players. Like I'm gonna pull Tampa's lines up here. They're missing a lot of players too, and Tampa, by the way, is rolling into this season with Jonas Johansson and Matt Tompkins as their goaltenders. I've never even heard of Matt Tompkins, and Johansson has been a pretty weak netminder by all accounts from the last time I looked up his stats anyways. So, like, the fact that Tampa's rolling in with that, it's hard to even use excuses when you see things like that because it's not like Ottawa's the only team who's missing players. A lot of teams are shorthanded. Like, Vancouver started the year with the same situation as Ottawa. They came in, I think did they roll 11 forwards, 6 defensemen in that game? Against Edmonton, a top team in the league as well, are expected to be, and they beat them like 8-1 or something.
Yeah.
It's like I know that was on home ice for Vancouver and stuff, but it just shows you that like even in tough matchups and hard situations, it's not like you can never like you can just expect to lose every time, or you can still win. So I'm gonna just whip Tampa's lines up here. Again, this is gonna be the second half of a back-to-back, so we're gonna have that excuse as well, readily available if they lose. But again, home ice, assuming they beat Philly, like they're 1-1, this is a chance to have a positive record. Right, like this could be a very big game, and again, Ottawa's first 3 games are all against Eastern Conference teams. I know they're going to be competing in the Atlantic, so this is going to be a big game against Tampa. But like every Eastern Conference game, kind of has some emphasis on it this year. They need to be focusing on these ones and really winning because they're going to be competing with primarily Atlantic, but like Pittsburgh is going to be competing for sure. Washington will probably be still in the area. There's going to be some Metro teams kind of competing with them for the wild card spots, so they need to be kind of having a good record in the Eastern Conference this year and the Atlantic especially. So looking at Tampa, they've got on their first line Connor Sheary, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, Steven Stamkos, Michael Esamont, Nick Paul, Austin Watson. There's a little Sens reunion for you. And then I don't even know who in the hell that is. Walteri Merila, Luke Glendening, and Tanner Jeannot. So that like some of these names and players, like I have pretty good hockey knowledge, but it throws me off for a loop here when I see players like that. But yeah, their forward core, obviously, I mean, like if you look at it, it is deep, but like they also have Watson on their third line, who is like, I don't know, he was hardly a fourth line player for Ottawa last year. So it is deep, though. They have Jeannot, obviously, and Glendening. So that's a deep core, but they certainly aren't as threatening as they were in the past. I don't think they're lacking. Yeah.
Sorry, before you go on to the defense, that second line, I mean, I know we did a breakdown of Tampa. That second line is good. I think that's a really good second line. So that'll be a challenge for Greg, Joseph, and Tarasenko, assuming that'll be the matchup. I don't know what they're going to do, but that's a tough, that's definitely the shutdown. Like they're going to want that line out against Brady, Timmy, and Claude.
Yeah, it's going to be sort of a tough matchup, and it doesn't get any better on defense either. I mean, Tampa's got obviously still Hedman, and then they've got Nick Perbix, Sergachev, and then Darren Radish, DeHaan, and Cernak is their bottom pairing. So again, like that Cernak has been on that third pairing as the shutdown guy, and they have strong depth. Like that's the big thing about Tampa. They're not featuring as much star power as they used to have, so they're not quite as intimidating on paper. But like they don't like they have a strength on every line and on every pairing. That's how I look at them. Obviously, like, you could look at Darren Radish in the top 4. You could say, okay, that's a weakness, but then he's paired with Sergachev, who's an excellent, like, elite level defenseman. They don't really have a weak link here for a pairing or a line, so it's going to be tough for Ottawa to get the matchups they like. And then, of course, too, again, second half of a back-to-back, they're going to be tired, right? Like, Tampa's going to be coming in. Are they in a back-to-back, too, though? They might be.
I was just going to check that. I don't know. I think they are, yeah, because everyone's playing tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's not
Yeah,
really a disadvantage for
they're
Ottawa
in
then.
Detroit. They're in Detroit
Okay, so
tomorrow.
they have to travel too. So
So
yeah,
Johansson's probably going to play tomorrow. So that means the
hmm,
Sens are probably going to get
Matt
Tompkins.
Tompkins. Nice. All right. So never mind with the excuses about the back to
The
back.
dude,
That's out the window.
sorry, the Lightning love playing their backup, no matter who it is and no matter who's their starter against the Senators. Like I feel like, and it's just disrespectful, which I get honestly, but I mean at this point it doesn't matter. I don't know. Would you give Vasilevsky Detroit or Ottawa? Like if they had him, I would assume they give him Ottawa, but
Yeah,
I'm
Ottawa
not
for sure.
complaining. I'm not complaining.
I'll take Matt Tompkins.
For sure, for sure. Just cue the 45 save career night. The thing is with Tampa is you look at that lineup. Yeah, it's like the depth is kind of scattered. And I said their forwards are deep just because they got Jeannot on the fourth line. Like that's good, and they're obviously putting Watson on the third line to kind of balance that out a little bit in the bottom six. To me, what stands out with all of that is the Sens top guys have to come to play. They really do. And I know that Braden Point, Kucherov, Stamkos are like elite tier of the NHL. But if we're not going to compare our top guys to them now, like when is it going to happen? You know what I mean? Tampa's on the down slope or whatever you want to call it. Like Ian Mendez mentioned when we had him on, John Cooper, head coach of the Lightning, mentioned there's going to be a season where everyone's just kind of meeting in the middle in a big cluster with Buffalo, Detroit, Tampa, Toronto, Boston. This is where it has to start. You have to kind of push the envelope. And I will say I've loved the way in the past 2 seasons that the Sens core has played against Tampa. I think it's been actually really good hockey. I've been, maybe more focused on those games because for the last 3 years, they've been the pinnacle of success in the NHL. So watching how the Sens stack up against them just kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. Like they've had some exciting and good games, like the core I'm talking about, not just a full team. Like Kachuk has had a hat trick against them. Timmy's had some big nights. So to me, that's what's important. Like it's got to be the core getting it done on Sunday. And I'm getting ahead of myself because Saturday can be whatever, but Sunday is going to be their not even first true test, but like they got to show that they're a better team than Tampa. They got to show that they can play at that level if they want to have a chance at a playoff spot in the Atlantic Division. Do you have anything more on the 2 games we're previewing here? We're cutting it a little bit short. I got to run, but I don't know, man. Like it feels good talking about games. Now I can't wait till there's more sample to talk about. Like Mondays is going to be fun. We have 3 games to pull on. It's hard just analyzing that one game, and I know what you mean about having 2 days off after. It's kind of tough.
It is, yeah. And no, I'm good pretty much here. I think that the key is just that Ottawa needs to leave this weekend with. I think they need at least 3 points. Like I'll ask you the same thing. Like how many points do you think they need to get this weekend?
4.
4. Yeah, I get. Yeah, hey, like let's not even sell them short here. Let's go for the full 4. I'll be content if they get 3 at least. I just don't think they can leave this weekend at either 0-3 or 1-2. That would be very disappointing record-wise.
The
Yeah,
reason I'll say 4 is because when you say 3, yeah, it sounds great. Like overall, they're 1-1-1. That's not bad. But I don't want an overtime loss in one of these games because I'm going to both. So I'd rather 2 wins. I
true.
want to see 2 wins. I am going with Derek Lee, and we are 2-0 in in-person games. We saw 2 together last year. We're 2-0. So first of all, give Derek Lee a follow on Twitter. He's a pretty great follow. Future Sickos podcast. I think he writes for Sens Talk too, which you should mention. Brandon launched a Sens Talk website, which is pretty exciting for him. And over at Sens Talk, got a lot of good writers. Wanted to mention that the other day actually, so I'm glad we got that in there. But yeah, I want 2 wins, and I don't care how they come. I just don't want an overtime loss. That's not fun to watch.
No, it's not, and of course, like then 1-1-1 is not as pretty as 2-1 either. Obviously, I think that the whole kind of motto will change if they're 2-1 after this weekend. That's a great way to kind of forget about that opening frustrating loss that they had in Carolina. So again, they have kind of the opportunity to prove themselves here. Like Philly's a bad team; they should handle Philly. I was originally thinking, okay, the excuses there with the back-to-back. Then we realized that Tampa's also playing on a back-to-back, and they have to travel, so they actually have the disadvantage. They're also starting Matt Tompkins, who is
They
a
also
complete
play
unknown.
tomorrow. They play tomorrow night, so it's even less time.
Oh my God,
Ottawa's
yeah.
got kind of a day and a half, really, right? When you think about it, it's not a true
Yeah.
back-to-back.
Plus Matt Tompkins, who could be like a 70-year-old netminder for all I know. I've never even heard of the guy. So it should be a situation where Ottawa has the upper hand in both games on paper anyways. And also Ottawa could be getting Norris back on Sunday. Like I think he's going to be playing soon. Surely he's not going to sit out for 5, 6, 7 games. I say that he very well could, but like like why not put him on LTIR if you had that sense, right? Like surely they've gotten a sense from him and the doctors that he's going to be ready to go sooner than later. So hopefully on Sunday he'll make his debut and we can get excited about that, talk about it. And then we'll kind of keep talking about Pinto because Pinto is now going to be missing 2-3 games. I don't think he's going to be signed before Sunday. So, and even if he is, he's got to kind of get a few conditioning. I guess he's been skating, but I don't really expect him to play like right away. So we'll see what happens with him. But it's kind of looking like, especially with how Joseph is playing, Pinto might not be in for another 5-6 games. So we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, I'm good. Enjoy the games this weekend. I don't know when we're going to record. Probably just recap both of them on Monday or something. But yeah, enjoy the games and everybody going, have fun. Send lots of pictures to Twitter and videos and stuff because I want to see the atmosphere. I don't think it's going to be able to match last season's home opener. That was like next level. Like, I don't know what else you can do to even come close to that.
You know what? I think the atmosphere will because it's going to be an afternoon game on a Saturday. And last year's home opener was a Tuesday night. Didn't stop people from having a good time. I think the reason that one was so crazy is just because of the game itself. It was what 3-0 for 10 minutes in. They had
7 goals.
Yeah, they had a disallowed goal too in that first 10 minutes, and then Batherson scored again anyway. Like it was crazy. It was a great game to watch, just hockey wise. But yeah, it was electric. So I'm expecting a similar atmosphere. I'm not going in expecting a 7-5 barn burner, but hey, you never know. So yeah, we'll be out there at the Canadian Tire Center. Quickly, what do you think of the CIBC jersey ad that's going to be on the black home jersey now? I don't hate it. I think if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it. Just do white writing. I don't really mind.
Yeah, I really didn't care at all. Like I saw that and I was like, retweet that. That's it. I mean, honestly, it's kind of clean looking. The only thing I will say is they're actually selling it on the jerseys at the Canadian Tire Center now, which is completely weird to me. Like that's very bizarre. I wouldn't buy one with the patch on it. I'd just order it online without the patch. But as a whole, I don't think it really affects the jersey very much.
Yeah. All right. I think we're on the same page with that one there. I also, though, I actually don't mind if I was buying one. Like it's that small to me. I think it's just like we'll notice it for a little bit, but it's at least it's not like milk or something like that. Yeah. Which honestly, I will say though, if you get away from the word that milk, it doesn't look bad because it kind of goes with the colors. I think Montreal's, they have RBC. They did last year. I don't know if they do this year. Like that looks bad to me.
Yeah.
Like it technically fits their color scheme a little bit, but it's just so, it's like, oh, wow. Okay. Blue on red. Like I can notice that. So we will leave it there for episode 47 of the Everyday Sens podcast. Once again, subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave a like if you want to. We're going to be trying pregame lives. I think we're going to try them mostly maybe 1 or 2 a week. It'll depend. We're not going to put a hard number on it, but we liked doing it on Wednesday. That was fun to do because we finish up and then we go right into a Sens game. It was great. So as of right now, it's about 24 hours from puck drop for the home opener of the 2023-24 season. So that's been the Everyday Sens podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. We will see you all next time.